Everyone knows the pharaohs of Egypt, the pyramids, the golden masks, the god kings on the Nile. But here's what almost nobody tells you. For nearly a century, the pharaohs of Egypt weren't Egyptian. They came from the south, from a kingdom Egypt had spent 500 years trying to control. A kingdom of archers so feared that Egyptians called their homeland the land of the bow. A kingdom sitting on so much gold that its very name may come from the Egyptian word for it, Nub. This is the Kingdom of Kush, and in 730 BC, its king looked north at a fractured, feuding Egypt and decided the gods had chosen him to take it all. This is the story of King Piye, the conqueror history tried to forget. South of Egypt's border, past the Nile's first cataract, lay Nubia, home of the Kushites. For centuries, Egypt treated Kush as a treasury to be raided. Gold, ivory, ebony, incense, and soldiers. Kushite archers were the most lethal in the ancient world, recruited into Egyptian armies for 1,000 years. Egyptian children learned to see Nubia as a possession, a colony, a source. But empires rot from within. By 1070 BC, Egypt shattered. Rival dynasties carved up the Nile. Libyan warlords seized the delta. The kingdom that had dominated the ancient world dissolved into civil war. And in the south, in the shadow of a sacred mountain, something new was rising. Jebel Barkal. To the Kushites, this mountain was the birthplace of the god Amun, the same god Egypt worshipped as king of the gods. Around it grew the city of Napata, and from Napata, a royal line began pulling Nubia together. First under King Kashta, who pushed Kushite influence north to Thebes itself. Then came his successor, Piye. Piye believed something radical, that the Kushites weren't imitating Egypt, they were its true heirs. While Egypt's northern warlords schemed and squabbled, Piye's court kept the old rites of Amun burning. In his eyes, Egypt hadn't just lost its unity, it had lost its soul. And then a northern prince named Tefnakht forged a coalition of Delta kings, swallowed city after city, and laid siege to Piye's allies in the south. Even Nimlot of Hermopolis, Piye's own ally, defected to his side. Piye called his army. This was no ordinary invasion. Piye framed it as a holy war, a crusade to cleanse Egypt and restore Amun's order. His orders survive, carved in stone. Before battle, his soldiers were to purify themselves in the river, to worship at Karnak. Fight clean, he told them, for the god sends the strength. City after city fell. Hermopolis surrendered after a siege that starved it into submission. Rival kings threw themselves at Piye's feet. Then came the true test. Memphis, Egypt's ancient capital. Massive walls, a defended harbour, Tefnakt's garrison inside, confident the city could not be taken quickly. Piye saw what they missed. The Nile was at flood, the river had risen against the city's eastern walls, and every mast in the harbour now stood level with the battlements. He seized every boat in the harbour and turned the fleet itself into a siege engine. His archers climbed the rigging and poured over the walls. Memphis, one of the most defended cities on earth, fell in a single assault. The northern princes submitted. Even Tefnakht sent his surrender, by letter from an island in the delta. He conceded everything, but never once bowed in person. Piye became pharaoh of a reunited Egypt, the first ruler of its 25th dynasty. The dynasty history would call the Black Pharaohs. Then he did something almost no conqueror does. He went home. Piye returned to Napata and left Egypt's princes to govern in his name, recording the entire campaign on a granite stela, one of the most detailed war accounts of the ancient world. His successors ruled an empire spanning 1,000 miles of the Nile. And they didn't just rule Egypt, they revived it. Taharqa, the greatest of the line, restored crumbling temples from the delta to Nubia, expanded Karnak, and built steep-sided pyramids in the old style, a form Egypt itself had abandoned 800 years earlier. Trade flowed, monuments rose. For a moment, the Nile was whole again. Then came Assyria, the ancient world's first true military superpower, armed with iron where Kush still fought with bronze. Wave after wave crashed into Egypt. Taharqa fought them for years, won battles, lost cities, but the arithmetic of iron was merciless. The Kushites withdrew south. Egypt fell to the invaders. But Kush did not die. At Meroë, the kingdom endured for another 1,000 years, with its own script, its own gods, and some of the largest ironworks in Africa. Rome itself would negotiate with Kush rather than conquer it. So why have most people never heard this story? When early European archaeologists uncovered Kushite monuments, many refused to believe an African kingdom south of Egypt had built them, let alone ruled Egypt itself. Some credited the pyramids of Sudan to lost Egyptians. Others simply looked away. The evidence was catalogued, crated, and quietly sidelined for over a century. Only in recent decades has the record been set straight. The statues are being raised again, the stelae are being read again, and the verdict of the stone is unambiguous. An African kingdom conquered Egypt, wore its crown, and outlasted its fall by a millennium. Piye's granite stela says more than any historian could. He didn't see himself as a foreign invader. He saw himself as Egypt's redeemer. And for 100 years, he was right. The Kingdom of Kush is just the beginning. This channel exists to bring stories like this out of the storage crates and back into the light. Which part of this story surprised you most? Tell me in the comments. I read every one. And if you want the next chapter, the land of Punt, the Nok culture, the empires, the textbooks skipped, subscribe now. The next episode is already in the works.